Top prospect and former 6th overall pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets in David Jiricek has recently called out Columbus in a major way after his recent demotion to the AHL. And in this interview, Jiricek has some scathing comments against the Columbus Blue Jackets for both his usage and his future with Columbus. But what did David Jiricek say about the Blue Jackets? What does his future look like with CBJ? And could we see a trade in the future for this future top pair D? Well, make sure you watch till the end as we go through all the trade rumors and all the latest news. And hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey prospect content just like this all throughout the year. You guys know this is the place to be, so stick with us here and join the Graviteh gang. Now, it's pretty surprising to see David Jiricek come out in a recent interview and be as open as he was about what he wanted in his NHL future and so honest about the Blue Jackets organization. Especially for a 20-year-old D, you really don't see that all too often. With David Jiricek, he's proved to show so much in really all of North America. You can see as a 6'3", 209-pound D. We've been talking about him for a long time on this show, and you can see, of course, he was drafted 6th overall by Columbus back in 2022, and the steady progression has been there. He first played in the AHL right after he was drafted and put up 38 points in 55 games, a lot of that being on the power play, but he was a pretty amazing power play player and was able to really utilize that position well. And then this year was able to at least win a decently competitive starting job, got 36 games when it was all said and done in the NHL, getting 1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points, looking pretty solid. But of course, going back down to the AHL is the main contention here, going back and forth between the NHL and the AHL. But the weird thing about Jiricek, especially for a 20-year-old D, is how much Columbus has been yanking him from both the NHL and the AHL level. He started out the season in the AHL, and after the first game for Columbus, they brought him back to the NHL level, and we're playing him pretty decent minutes, but sheltered minutes. And then, of course, a couple weeks ago, they started healthy scratching him, then they sent him back down to the AHL, and then back down to the NHL, and then back down to the AHL again. So it's been a pretty wild roller coaster in Jiricek's case. And then recently, we got a big article from The Athletic from Aaron Portzline, the main guy for Columbus, saying with this big headline, Blue Jackets Sunday Gathering, David Jiricek frustrated with latest demotion to the AHL. Now, folks, we're going to go completely through this article to see what's next with Jiricek's career and what he ended up saying about Columbus. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor in Sleeper Fantasy. If you think you know hockey, then try to turn that hockey knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn your game day into payday. On Sleeper, there's daily fantasy sports to pick more or less on your favorite players, whether they be in the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, every sports league. Today, we only have one NHL game, which makes it a little bit challenging, but I'm here for a challenge. Ottawa and Nashville. And for my picks, I got Vladimir Tarasenko higher than 1.5 shots. Forsberg higher than 3.5 shots. He got 9 shots in his last game, so I'm hoping he continues that. And Gaudreau higher than 2.5 shots. I think this game is going to be pretty crazy, a little bit hectic, but it's going to go in our favor. So make sure you try out Sleeper Fantasy by going in the description, clicking on the first link, and going to Sleeper, signing up, and using promo code GRAB on your first deposit, and you get up to a $500 match. And once again, thank you to Sleeper Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. Now, thankfully, we have a great breakdown here by CBJ Center on Twitter, and they say David Jiricek to The Athletic with the quote here, I played good hockey in the NHL. I'm an NHL player right now. That's my opinion, that I should be in the NHL right now. I see guys from the same draft like Simon Nemec and Kevin Korchinski, they get a chance on the power play. Now, this is interesting. For me personally, I completely agree with what David Jiricek is saying right here. Even though he hasn't been stellar at the NHL level this year, he hasn't been a Calder candidate or anything, he's on the same level, I would say, as a Kevin Korchinski, where he's playing solidly in the role that he's given and doing the best he can at a pretty young age. This is just coming from last season, and looking at power play assists among rookies, David Jiricek was pretty solidly first place with 20 power play assists and also 4 power play goals as well. So a lot of that production coming on the power play and looking really good on the man advantage. Not getting the power play time in the NHL is sure to be a frustration. And I can completely see why it's a frustration, because you look at the power play units that Columbus is rolling right now, and you obviously got Werenski as the first power play guy. You're not going to beat that if you're David Jiricek at 20 years old, obviously. But on that second power play unit, you have Jake Bean, which, okay. Now, in being fair, that is just what it is right now. In terms of actual power play time on ice, Werenski, of course, among defensemen is the leader. You got Ivan Provorov, who's played 90 minutes of time on ice this year on the power play. You got a player like Damon Severson, who's up there. Adam Boqvist. Jake Bean has just recently come on the power play. But then you go on to David Jiricek, who has only played 26 seconds on the power play this entire year. And just quite frankly, I think that's a disutilization of the player you have here. He has quite obviously proved in North America, in the AHL, that he's not just a defensive player, especially on the power play, can bring not just results, but amazing results. And only using it for 26 seconds this year, I mean, that's not just a cup of coffee, that's nothing. Do you think you're going to miss the playoffs if a couple of power plays don't end up working out? You're the 2024 Columbus Blue Jackets. Give me a break. Let's keep going, though, because that is not the last of what David Jiricek said. He also said they play a ton of minutes in the NHL. Those are different teams, so different situations, but I can't compare with them. I just want a chance to play like that. They told me the last game was not good enough for me. I told them I don't think so. That's your opinion. Then he continues to say, I was out of the lineup after that, a whole month now. It feels like I haven't played. Aaron Porcelain adds, there was concern that Jiricek would decline to report to the Cleveland Monsters. Now we get this quote here from Jiricek as well. The guys here in Cleveland are awesome. The coaches are awesome. It's fun to be here now because there's a lot of winning. There's a good energy, but still, this is not what I want, right? Now, going back to that Athletic article and some points I wanted to also bring up, it's interesting here because Aaron Porcelain ends up saying this. Jarmo Kekalainen and coach Pascal Vincent don't believe that Jiricek is, at present, one of the club's top 6 defensemen, which is why the 20-year-old has been sent back to the Cleveland Monsters for the 4th time this season. But we also got some more interesting notes here. Jiricek believing that he's NHL ready after spending last season in the NHL. That's why the relationship has become strained. And it's why Jiricek bears watching over the next few days and weeks. Now, he also notices that Jiricek played his last NHL game on January 9th when the Blue Jackets lost 5-0 to Winnipeg. He played only 15 minutes in that game, had 2 shots on goal, no points, and an even rating. After that, he was scratched in 3 straight games before being sent back to Cleveland. You have this first goal with a turnover in Winnipeg zone, and then it just goes up. Nikolai Ehlers' great entry, and Erik Gudbranson cannot defend anything. On this goal, the puck is below the goal line. I don't even know what the heck Severson is even thinking. You have this goal, just a turnover again in the neutral zone, just soft defending in general, open position for Morrissey, and he makes no mistake. You got this 4th goal, man, which is just embarrassing watching Johnny Gaudreau trying to defend here, trying to get the puck back. I mean, this is just awful. How is this even allowed? And then the Jets are in the power play, up 4-0. Look at Erik Gudbranson, man. Are you kidding me, dude? 5 goals for Winnipeg, 4 even strength goals for Winnipeg, and 0 goals on the ice that David Jiricek was on for. But hey, Pascal Vincent decides Jiricek needs to be healthy scratched for a month because of this game. Sure, maybe there was some lead up to it, but I mean, I could count numerous defensemen that deserve to be scratched after this game, way more than Jiricek did. And no, David Jiricek is not the savior. He's made some mistakes. He hasn't been amazing in every single game, but for a 20-year-old rookie who needs reps, like Pascal Vincent would later mention, I think he's best suited for the NHL compared to what some of these other defensemen on Columbus are putting out there. Aaron Porcelain says Jiricek's skating is fine in straight line and predictable bursts, but he doesn't get his feet tangled when the play changes abruptly. That's an issue in the defensive zone, especially against the NHL's quicker and more agile players. And I can agree with this. Jiricek's skating in some moments looks great. Again, transitionally, when he's going up and rushing the puck up the ice, it looks pretty phenomenal. But using his edges, pivoting in quicker competition is something that will need to be worked on, and he has worked on that in practice, which I do think is a good thing, but I don't think you have to healthy scratch him for those lessons to be learned. Sure, maybe healthy scratch him for a game, but a month like he was getting healthy scratched wasn't doing him any good. But this one is really the interesting one. Aaron Porcelain says the Blue Jackets have had a plan for Jiricek right away from the start of the season, Kekalainen said, but there have been mixed signals along the way. Jiricek was sent to the Cleveland Monsters at the end of training camp and was called by Columbus after the season opener. In November, he was pulled aside by Kekalainen and told to get a place in Columbus, which is always a big moment for a young player. Then he says, less than a week later, however, Jiricek was sent back to the AHL to play for a weekend before he was quickly recalled to Columbus. It appeared that the same path was being followed earlier this month when Jiricek was sent to Columbus after his 3 healthy scratches in Columbus, but after flying with the club to Edmonton for the start of their road trip, he was again a healthy scratch. In November, I started looking for an apartment in Columbus, Jiricek said. The dream was coming true. Now he's living in a Cleveland hotel while his Columbus apartment sits empty. I mean, dude, what are we doing here? Jarmo Kekalainen tells him to get a place in Columbus. It's obviously not the biggest deal in the world since Columbus and Cleveland are a lot closer than a lot of NHL and AHL teams. But at the same time, Jiricek has been told that he was going to get major responsibility even back in November. This was recently, I mean, just a couple of months ago. He was told that he was going to have a mainstay place in Columbus, which sure, he is going to eventually be a ready player. But the fact that he was told by his GM to get a place now in November, and then right after that just get swung with all of these different call-ups and call-downs at the same time. I mean, how are you supposed to take that as a younger player? Especially in a player like David Jiricek's case, who isn't yet making millions of dollars every single year, to have an apartment just sitting there could absolutely lead to frustration. But David Jiricek is obviously frustrated with how he has been treated in Columbus, how his situation is with the Blue Jackets right now, and I agree, he should be in the NHL lineup. I think sheltering him like they did was a pretty good role for him at 20 years old. He didn't need to be playing 25 minutes a night immediately, and I don't think he should have. But I think in that role, he had some pretty good stretches. And sure, there were mistakes here and there, but it was mistakes that I think would be fixed eventually with just more playing time at the NHL level. I don't think it was anything absolutely critical that he needed to go back down to the AHL for. And sure, he'd be playing more minutes there, but he's already proved a lot at the AHL level. But as David Jiricek mentioned, with Simon Nemec also looking good, you can see, of course, the duo and the rivalry between the two as top 6 picks back in 2022, with Nemec going 2nd overall, Jiricek going 6th overall. And back in my own draft rankings, I had them neck and neck. I had Simon Nemec 5th, I had David Jiricek 6th in my rankings. Probably both of them will be higher if we did it today. But with Nemec at 19 years old, he hasn't had this yo-yo effect. I mean, he had started the season in the AHL, looked amazing there, got 8 points in 13 games after a solid AHL campaign last year, and then has been playing in the NHL after the call-up, after those big injuries on the defense for New Jersey, and has gotten 13 points in 26 games. A great sheltered offensive role for him, where he's looked pretty great in it, and that's exactly where he should be. That's exactly the deployment he should be getting, and the consistency as well in the leagues. They haven't set him up and down a ton of times like they have with Jiricek. They've given him stable positions, whether he was in the AHL or the NHL, and made it clear the positions and the work they needed to do. And to me, if you're comparing the two teams, I much prefer what New Jersey is doing with Nemec's development, that's for sure. But this is still a player in David Jiricek that I think can be a top pair D, and obviously he's not going to be that yet. But I do think with Jiricek, this is a player that has so much potential and deserved to be in the NHL this year. And sure, obviously, he could get some more room to improve, and the AHL is fine. It's not going to ruin his development being there. But at the same time, I think the NHL was just much more suited for him, and there was some serious strengths he was already showing at the NHL level, which I think for a 20-year-old D, you have to take and you have to give a lot more time to. And to me, especially in Columbus's case, this is a team that should be giving as much of an opportunity that they can to their players, which is why players like Fantilli not getting the ice time they should has been a major frustration this year. But same thing with David Jiricek. I mean, they were playing him in a pretty decent role that I thought was working pretty well for him, and now just sending him back down to the AHL for a game that he didn't even play that badly in. He didn't even have a goal against in that game. Right now, I think Columbus is just kind of a dumpster fire, and Vincent Pascal has done a horrible job as head coach, as we can so obviously see with their record under him. Not really any improvement whatsoever, and it's been just been awful. It's just been sad to watch, and especially developmentally. I mean, they've been saved by just how good Adam Fantilli has been, because the way they're deploying him, the way they're using David Jiricek, it's not exactly how I would go about it, that's for sure. But if these frustrations continue to linger, we could see some more trade rumors coming out of David Jiricek in the future as well. I don't think we'll actually see a trade, because I think with David Jiricek, a lot of that motivation is just to get to the NHL level and look good with Columbus. I do think he enjoys the situation there when it's all going well, but again, it's just led to a lot of frustration, all of the lack of inconsistency that has had to plague David Jiricek's career so far. I mean, Columbus deserves a little bit of a shake-up here. To me, Jarmo Kekalainen doesn't deserve to be GM anymore, and just things like this, just the constant issues with the team, not even just with the prospects, but the players that they've acquired on the ice. Columbus is not a good team right now, and even though the future is looking good with the prospect pool, they're pretty much saved by that right now, because that's all they can hope for to save this team. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of this David Jiricek situation? Do you think he requests a trade in the future? How do you think Columbus is handling him? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Let us know all your thoughts down below. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more breakdowns just like this. And as well, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans, all the Columbus fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all my hockey prospects talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I hope you have a fantastic hockey day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.